So I want to welcome everyone. My name is Renee Young-Trego. I'm with UW Parkside. Sorry, I was about to say UW Wisconsin. So UW Parkside. I want to welcome everyone for attending today. This career track is featuring the Kenosha Public Museum. And again, it's hosted by University of Wisconsin Parkside. So I am joined by my colleague, Linda Bevick, who is also at Parkside. I want to extend another thank you to Haley Carr of UW Superior's Career Services team and Career Track Committee for managing today's technology. So thank you, Haley, for being here and for your support through this. Before I introduce our representatives from the Kenosha Public Museum, I do have a few comments on logistics for the day. So again, this presentation will be recorded for future viewing. There are more details on how to view the recording at the end of the event, but I want everyone to be aware of that. Second, I want to draw everyone's attention to the registration form that I'm going to be putting in the chat. And this is especially important for those who are looking to receive course credit for attending today. So let me just put that in the chat before I keep talking. If it lets me copy it in there. There we go. So this is just asking for your information. And again, for those who are looking for credit for attending, please fill out this form. And then also, if you wanted to follow up with us, this helps us as well to see who attended today. Third, I'm very excited along with Linda to be hosting today's track and to be part of this UW System Initiative to virtually showcase the many career opportunities found in our very own state of Wisconsin. So all of this year's tracks are hosted virtually and will occur for the rest of this semester, the fall semester. And then we're coming back at it in spring 2021. So we're really excited to host more tracks. There are 13 total each semester, with one UW school hosting a track each week. So very exciting that we can have one available each week for all of you. So this initiative is supported by our UW System President, Tommy Thompson. It was mentioned in the press release, so I'm going to include that link as well if you wanted to read a little bit more about the initiative and system support. We're going to continue on with these career tracks next week, Wednesday, November 4th at 2 p.m. And next week's track will feature American Family Insurance and will be hosted by UW-Madison. So after learning about museum careers today, stay tuned for careers with the American Family Insurance next week. So without further ado, I'll step off my soapbox in a second and introduce you to our company hosts. First, we have Lisa Dretske, who is the development manager for the Kenosha Public Museum, Dinosaur Discovery Museum, and the Civil War Museum. Next, we have Gina Radandt, who is the curator of collections for the Kenosha Museum campus. And then finally, we have Doug Dammann, who is the education manager. Kenosha Public Museum, it's all you. Take it away. Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting us today. Here at the Kenosha Public Museums, we're really happy to share what we do because we're very excited about our museums. Again, my name is Lisa Dretske. I'm the development manager for the Kenosha Public Museums. We are located in downtown Kenosha, right on the lakefront. And not many people realize that the Kenosha Public Museums are made up of 3 different museums, which Renee voiced out. The Kenosha Public Museum is one, the Dinosaur Discovery Museum, and then the Civil War Museum, and they're all located downtown. Just a kind of quick overview of all of our museums for those who haven't been here. And we encourage you to visit if you're close to Kenosha. The Kenosha Public Museum is our natural history and art museum. The Dinosaur Discovery Museum is the only museum to focus on the link between meat-eating dinosaurs and birds, and one of the most complete known fossil records. We work in association with the Carthage Institute of Paleontology, and it's our on-site laboratory. And the Dinosaur Discovery Museum presents current ongoing research in the study of dinosaurs. The Civil War Museum focuses on the Civil War from the perspective of people from the 7 states of the upper Midwest, which includes Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, and of course, Wisconsin. These 7 states sent over 1 million men to serve in the Union Army while providing much of the food and raw materials necessary for the northern states to carry on in the war. And we also are home to one of only a handful of 360-degree films in the country, and ours is called Seeing the Elephant. So from the beginning, our museum was formed in 1933, with the major focus primarily being on education. Our main mission is to enrich the lives of Kenoshans, guests, and visitors through a variety of experiences that educate and stimulate curiosity. And then our vision is to be the center of cultural life in Kenosha and the catalyst for meaningful collaboration. So, though we are 3 separate museums, we function primarily as just one museum. All employees work for all 3 of the museums. So when people think about working in museums, they may not realize how many people are involved and the various degrees and backgrounds that everybody has in order to make the place run. So I'll kind of give you a quick rundown of who makes up our museums. So we are governed by a board of directors, and then we have one executive director who's kind of in charge of all the long-range thinking for our museums. Below the executive director, we have a deputy director, and she currently keeps pretty much everything in check and operating and making sure all the different departments are communicating to each other. We also have an accountant who, of course, has a background in finance, and he is also in charge of our gift shops and the frontline desk staff. They basically are the eyes and ears and faces of our museum. They talk to all the visitors, everything like that. And they all have experience in customer service, and our gift shop manager has knowledge in business administration. We also have a marketing and external relations department. This department covers all museum rentals, marketing and communications to the public, which can come in various different forms like web-based form, radio, print, and social media. And we've definitely seen that social media has been a big role in, especially with COVID. This department is also in charge of our volunteer management. And before COVID, our volunteers made up the work of almost 5 full-time employees for the museum. So that's a very, very important aspect of our museums. We also have a maintenance department. They make sure that everything inside and outside is working, clean, and pretty much is inviting and looks good to the public. Some other departments, or what we might consider the mission-based departments, are exhibits, collections, and education. But I'll let the other speakers deep dive into those departments since that's kind of their realm a little bit more. And then, of course, I know you've all been waiting for it, I make up the development department. My position is basically in charge of all donor relations and grant requests. So I'll kind of give you a bit of a background about myself. I am from Kenosha, Wisconsin originally, and I received my bachelor's in archaeology and my master's in historical archaeology. While I was in college, I interned actually at the Kenosha Public Museum under Gina in the collections department. And let's see, I also interned at quite a few other museums throughout my college career. And I also worked on many excavations anywhere from Tennessee, Illinois, all the way up to Alaska. I also worked full-time retail at the North Face to kind of pay my way through grad school. So I have a lot of customer service knowledge too. Let's see. I ultimately found out that my niche and something I liked doing was grant writing, and I ended up taking a certification course at UW Parkside in fund development, and then I eventually took the nonprofit management certification as well. I originally received a 20-hour-a-week consulting job for the Kenosha Public Museums a couple years ago, where I just put together a planned giving program for the development department. And while I was also working there, I also had a part-time job at Betty Brinn Children's Museum in Milwaukee as their VP of Customer Service and Exhibit Relations, and a part-time job on the weekends at the Pabst Mansion, which is a historical house museum in Milwaukee as well. After several years of doing the whole part-time museum routine, I took a full-time job at Kemper Center. It's a cultural center and historical landmark in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I was their executive director, which encompassed doing pretty much everything, education programming, fundraising, administrative management, marketing, everything else you can possibly think of, because we only had 5 employees and it was 17 acres of land. But eventually I then took the job as the development manager back at the Kenosha Public Museums, which allows me to focus primarily on one department, since we have a much bigger staff of about 50 people. So I strongly rely on the information I learned actually at the UW Parkside certification courses that I took, and also the people that I met while taking those courses. I currently do all things donor related. So that's keeping up with the donor database that we have, producing appeal mailings, sending out thank you letters to all the donors. Let's see, I do meetings and tours with different donors, and I attend a lot of different community events and plan fundraising events, grant writing, and basically just getting to know what the donors want to see, what other community partners want to see, and just kind of keep that communication going. Let's see. The fun part about my job that I enjoy the most is that I'm basically involved with every aspect of the museums. I get to relay all the information I learn at all the meetings and the planning processes with our donors and community partners to see how we can interact and possibly help each other out. I also do get to help out with archaeological research at the museum, so I do get to continue that part of my degree. But my biggest advice for anybody wanting to work in museums is to keep learning and to keep networking. I might not have gotten this job at the Kenosha Public Museums if I hadn't interned there 14 years ago. And I don't know if Gina wants me to remind her how long ago that was, but, but what you do now can definitely play a big role of what happens down the road. Many majors or areas of focus are needed to keep the museums functioning, anywhere from marketing, finance, nonprofit management, museum studies, business degrees, construction, IT. These are just to name a few. Or you can be like me and get a degree in archaeology and certifications in fund development and nonprofit management. If you want to work in museums, this can be done with many different degrees. But now I'm going to introduce Gina so she can show you more of the other aspects of working at the museums.
Thank you, Lisa. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm very excited to be talking to you. My name is Gina Radandt. I am the Curator of Collections for the Kenosha Museum System, and I am also the Department Manager for the Exhibits and Collections area. A little bit about myself. I have attended 4 different UW system schools in my academic career. I started out as a student at UW-Madison, and then I transferred to UW Parkside. And then in order to study for a year abroad in Scotland, I became a UW Black River Falls student. And then I had everything transfer back to Parkside, where I obtained my undergraduate degree in history. From there, I went on to graduate school at UW Milwaukee, where I earned my master's degree in public history with a specialization in museum studies. My particular focus at UW Milwaukee within museum studies was collections management. But the great thing about that UW Milwaukee program was that the way they take you through it over the 2 years of the coursework, they really walk you through all areas and everything it takes to make a museum function, which is what Lisa was just talking about with how we are organized and how many staff work here and all of the things we bring to the table to make our what's really considered a mid-size entity run. We're mid-size, smallish to mid-size based upon our staffing number and also our budget. So again, the museum studies program that I went through in particular was a great approach to really introducing you to the whole big picture. Whether you're working in a small museum, a one-person kind of shop, or something as large as, you know, the big museums we know of, the Field Museum, the Metropolitan Museum, things like that, where the staff is vast. Everybody plays a role in your organization, and the more you know about how the whole entity works, the better off you are, and you can contribute. I'll just segue a teeny bit. There are different kinds of museums out there. So there are history museums, there are art museums, there are science centers, children's museums, zoos and aquariums and arboretums fall under the museum, in the museum world. So not only are we talking about majors and job titles and job roles, you have to think about the types of museums. So say you're a student of biology, or botany for an arboretum, biology for a zoo. So, you know, I just want you to be aware of that. The other thing I'll get into now then is about my specific job here at the museums. As Lisa said, we do run the 3 museum system. So I have job duties at all 3 museums. That makes us unique for the size that we are in the breadth of materials and things that I'm responsible for. So between the 3 museums, each building, each one has its own mission, as Lisa mentioned, and therefore its own collection. Each of the 3 museums has its own collection storage room, and I am responsible for making sure that all of the artifacts and specimens that we are responsible for are taken care of to the best of our professional ability. It's about 100,000 items in total between the 3 museums. The Kenosha Public Museum, because it's been around the longest, has the largest collection. And then the Civil War Museum, since we've opened in 2008, has grown pretty substantially. And then the smallest collection, although just as important, is the collection at the Dinosaur Discovery Museum that comes to us through a partnership with Carthage College, which is a local college here in town, and their paleontology program, and a field season, a field school they do each year out on federal land in Montana. And with that recognition to dig on federal land, our Dinosaur Discovery Museum has been named a federal repository. We had to get credentialing for that in order to bring those materials off of federal land and place it into a museum setting so we can take care of it, we can curate it properly. So specifically what I do, as I said, is I'm here to make sure that everything that we have in the collections is taken care of appropriately. Depending on what building we're working in, we will make sure that everything is, once we take something in on donation, or if it's in our existing collection and we're working with it, we need to make sure that everything is cataloged and cataloged appropriately. And in the world of collections management, one of the things I always say right off the bat is, if you're not a person who's extremely detail oriented and can really keep track of a lot of things, collections work can become overwhelming for you. So to make sure everything's cataloged, you have to work with each and every piece to make sure that we have all of the necessary information. I call it building its biography within the museum collection, so we can utilize it to the best effect and take care of it to the best of our ability. Everything gets its own catalog number. It gets put into this cataloging software we use, which is called Past Perfect. We take photographs, we do condition reports, we put the history that we know of the artifact and any additional research that we might find out about it into the catalog record to really build a strong, healthy biography of every single thing within the collection. Another thing to point out is that the mission for each museum dictates what we collect. We are not here on, we can't, and museums have faced that reality over, I would say, the last 30 years within the profession of no museum can really take on everything unlimited and just keep collecting and collecting. So your mission helps keep you focused as to what it is you're collecting parameters. And that's another thing I'm doing as the curator of collections is when there is an inquiry about a donation, a potential donation, I will work with someone in conversations to find out what they have, if is it appropriate for one of the 3 museums, and then if it is, we move on to the formal donation process. So there's a lot of paperwork involved, there's data entry, and you really, again, with the subject matters that we deal with at all 3 museums, I always say I'm a generalist. I have, over time, I know a little bit about a lot. I'm not an uber specialist where I know just, you know, a lot about one particular subject matter or something within a subject matter. Larger museums sometimes have the benefit of that, where they have many departments in terms of their content, and you could possibly become a super specialist. But my role as the specialization is to know about collections management to give the best care. The other thing I'll just say here as I kind of conclude my time is we hope you do come and visit us in Kenosha. We are open currently under limited hours because of COVID. So if you are planning on coming, please check out our websites and follow us on social media. We hope you would become one of the visitors that we count as we usually average right around 200 to maybe 220,000 people visiting us each year in a regular year in a non-pandemic scenario. And so that keeps us very busy on the visitor side, for Lisa on the development and donor side. And then it will also keep the gentleman I'm about to introduce very busy with his role here on the education side. And so I will throw it over to Doug Dammann, my colleague, and he will introduce himself. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thanks, Gina. Hi, everybody. My name's Doug. I've worked here at the Kenosha Public Museums for almost 13 years. My 13th anniversary is coming up pretty soon. Doesn't seem like that long ago that I was in your shoes on the other side of the screen, kind of trying to figure out what to do with an American history degree. I was a history major in Kalamazoo College, Kalamazoo, Michigan, and had the opportunity my junior year to go out and do a variety of internships. And one of the places I ended up working for 6 months was for the National Park Service in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, for the federal government. And that was a really interesting time in my life. I got to network and meet a number of people that were working professionally in museums. I didn't really know that much about museums at all, what it entailed and what kind of job functions there were. So just by listening to what Lisa and Gina had to say, I already have a leg up over my own knowledge when I was a junior in undergrad. But I really enjoyed the work that I did there. I watched the people that I worked for in that internship really seem to enjoy their work and be enthusiastic about it every morning. And that really appealed to me. I mean, that kind of hooked me in. And the 2 gentlemen that I worked for in their offices encouraged me to explore grad school after graduation from undergrad. And I did. I'm originally from Illinois. I ended up going down to Eastern Illinois University in Charleston, Illinois. They had, and I use the past tense on that, had a public history, historic administration program down there. And it was the second oldest in the country. Sadly, for us alumni, the program was disbanded a couple years ago because the state of Illinois was in budgetary troubles, and one of the casualties of that was the HA program down there. But that was the path I took. After graduation from there, I ended up at a variety of places on the East Coast, worked in a few museums in and around Washington, D.C. And one of the places I worked at was the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. And I was a completely different role than what I'm doing here. It was all collections based. So much of what Gina described was my reality at Smithsonian. And I'll just share this with you, because you never know what skills are going to be most valuable for you, sorry, easy for me to say, when it comes to your career. And one of the most valuable skills I found, and one of the most valuable courses I ever took when I worked at Smithsonian happened to be wood shop. I took wood shop when I was a junior in high school because I thought, you know, someday I might actually own a house and I might need to maintain that house. And it might be good to learn how to use power tools. Plus, I thought the guy who taught wood shop at my high school was a pretty cool guy and it'd be a fun class to take. So I graduated from high school with all 10 fingers. I could run a table saw, I could run a band saw, I could use a hammer and some of that stuff. And lo and behold, when I got to the Smithsonian, a lot of the collections work that we did was constructing artifact mounts, you know, custom mounts for these large scale aeronautic and space history pieces. And so we spent a lot of time in the wood shop. We had people that welded, we had all kinds of people that had amazing skills with their hands. And it was one of those things where when I got there, I was familiar with some of those power tools. I felt like I wasn't a safety liability to be in there. And so my message in all of this is if you are interested in museums, never discount any of the experience that you might have or classes that you think would have nothing to do with your chosen career. Or possibly, like Lisa said, customer service work in retail or in a restaurant or something like that, because museum work is all about working with the public. And if you have customer service history or experience, that is going to help you separate yourself, and quite possibly you'll end up using a lot of that experience in this realm. Because one of the things that's really cool and exciting for me about working in museums is we work in public history. Okay, what does that mean? Well, for me, public history means every day that we open the doors of these three facilities, I have no idea who's going to walk through that front door, right? It's open from 10 to 4:30. Anybody can walk through the door. And anybody is going to bring their own skill set and knowledge about the Civil War or dinosaurs or American Indians or art into the museum. They might be the national expert on that particular subject matter. And our job is to present something new to them in a new and interesting way. The flip side of that is we might have people who walk through the doors in the summertime who only come in to use the bathroom or to get out of the heat because they want to experience the air conditioning. And so then they kind of come in and go, well, this looks kind of cool. Let's spend 15, 20 minutes here. So our job in the education department in a public history setting is to make sure that those so-called experts who know everything there is to know about that particular subject matter, who have made it this place is their destination to come for the day to study it, or that family who wandered in off the beach because they just happened to be down here in the lakefront and they need to use the bathroom, that both parties kind of get excited about your subject matter, your exhibits, your collection, and you know what, they want to know more. And you're not going to teach them everything while they're here. That's impossible because there's limited time for them and they only have so much attention. But maybe you inspire them to go pick up a book in your museum shop or go to the local library and check something out and want to know more. And you kind of like plant that seed for them that this is exciting, this is important. And I learned something when I came to that museum. And that's our challenge as educators in this realm, is that we're public historians. We just don't know. It's not like for you, you've signed up to take a class at one of the UW's institutions. You meet at that class from 2 to 4 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you get graded. You have things to hand in. We don't have that kind of carrot in which the grading or you've paid money to be here. We're more of a leisure time activity. People come to our museums because they want to be here. And that's part of the fun of it too, right? People are here because they want to be here. So how do we interact with people? I'll briefly say a couple of different ways that I jotted down here really quickly. Tour programs. We offer school group programs. We offer adult group programs. So if you're interested in kind of like elementary ed or you're an education student, maybe the education department at a museum might be something that you might want to look into. Teaching is what we're really all about. With the pandemic, we've really had to shift gears when it comes to our teaching style and teaching method. We're offering a lot more virtual programming because right now school groups just aren't traveling. If they're meeting in person, they're in the building, right? They're not hopping on buses and going and doing field trips. So we've had to adapt a lot of what we've done in the past to the virtual realm. Another way that we interact with our public is through programming. We offer, like maybe some of you have been to museums and you come across someone who's running like a hands-on cart when you go in, and it's some fossils there or skulls or something really cool, and you go up and you interact with that person for 5-10 minutes, and you get a hands-on experience with them, and you get a little deeper knowledge of one of the exhibits. So we do drop-in programs like that. But we offer talks and lectures. Experts in the field come out and maybe do a half-hour to an hour-long program for our audience, and that's either seated or virtual. We offer workshops. We hire teachers to come and maybe teach art or do programs on civil war history or on anthropology. So we offer a robust number of workshops. And then finally, we've also, again, with your knowledge of computers, you're probably way ahead of me when it comes to virtual programming, but we've had to shift a lot of our workshops to the virtual world. And so we're learning every single day, and every time we offer one, what works and what doesn't. So being adaptable and shifting gears has been paramount this year. We also work with Gina and the exhibits department on exhibits. And I like to think that the education department really acts as the eyes and ears and the voice of the visitor. Now, I'm the curator here at the Civil War Museum. I'm paid to know the content of the Civil War. And so I can say this kind of stuff. Sometimes content experts and nerds like me think we know too much. And what we have to explain to people is so over the top, and we want to put it all on the wall, and it's just too much. Like nobody would ever read that much. So the job of the educator is try to rein in sometimes those content specialists to make it and represent the visitor and say, well, the visitor has got maybe little kids tugging on their arm. They don't have all day to read everything that you want to put up on the wall. So we represent the eyes and ears of the visitor experience during that exhibit construction and implementation phase. We do evaluations to learn what the audience wants, front-end evaluations to learn what the audience might know about a particular subject, formative evaluations when the exhibit is being constructed. You can test things out and see what's working, what needs to be altered. And then at the end, evaluations, summative evaluations that say, all right, what worked and what didn't? That was a great idea. We'll do that again. Or boy, we really blew it with that one. We'll probably not go that route again. So we're constantly learning and representing and being the voice of the visitor when it comes to exhibits as well. So it's a varied career. It's fun. Every single day is something new, which was attractive to me when I was looking for something to do with my U.S. history degree. I just will mention and dovetail to what Lisa said. We are a municipal, we're run by the city of Kenosha. So it's always good to know like how you're going to get paid, because eating and having shelter are good things when you go out to try to find a job. So our budget is paid for by the city of Kenosha, but you'll have state-run organizations like the Veterans Museum in Madison, federal funded institutions like the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. and other places, or private institutions throughout the land. So there are different ways in which museums are funded. So that's something to keep in mind when you're out there thinking about this as a career as well. So that was a lot of stuff all in a short amount of time. I think any of us would be happy to take questions if you have them. I see Gina raising her hand. Do you have a question?
No, not a question, just a comment. I wanted to add, for anybody who would like to find out more about museums and the museum profession, the American Alliance of Museums is our national professional body, and their website is very good with information that not only you need if you currently work in a museum, but I think if you want to investigate a career in a museum, just to again see what's out there around the country, and I would say around the world. There are museums around the world, and I do know people that I graduated with from my master's program. A couple have ended up in other countries. So that's one thing about the profession, is that it can be in your backyard, in your local community, your state, your region, your country, or again, around the world. But the American Alliance of Museums is a good place to start if you want to find out some additional information.
Another good place to start is Parkside, who's sponsoring this. Gina has taught at Parkside. I teach at Parkside. We offer a intro to museum studies course at Parkside. And while that's not a major that's offered by the school, you take 2 classes in that, the intro and then an admin class, and you get a certificate that goes along with your undergraduate, your bachelor's degree. So maybe your own institutions that you're currently at would offer something similar. Again, if you come out of that at Parkside, you're way ahead of where I would have been when I got out of Kalamazoo my senior year. So that kind of knowledge about the inner workings of a museum. So take advantage of that if you have the opportunity while you're an undergraduate.
Well, thank you, Doug, Gina, and Lisa. We really appreciate your comments and insight because, museums, we see it as a consumer. We don't understand the inner workings when we walk into a museum, and there's just so much going on behind the scenes. So I do want to open it up for questions. So I know, Marie, thank you. You are ahead of me, which is great. So if you have questions, feel free to do that. And if there are more questions, we'll start with Marie because she did insert it in the chat. And then if you do have questions, just raise your hand and we'll just kind of go through one by one. I also want to mention, I'm going to put the registration form in the chat again. So if you could fill that out, that would be great. But go ahead, Marie, if you have a question, feel free.
I actually have several questions, but I'll start with my first one. So I'm actually the vice president of the Society of Museum Studies Club on the UWSP campus. And I was wondering if there was a way, if my club wanted to set up a virtual tour or meeting, or even send a list of questions, if there was a way to do that.
I'll speak for the group, Marie, since that kind of, I think, would fall within the education department. Yeah, if you want to get my email through Renee, we'd be happy to do that for you. So the answer is yes.
Awesome. I have other questions, but I'll let other people ask first.
Jordan, I see your hand.
Hi, so I'm currently a senior at UW Superior. I'm in the process of applying to several graduate programs, and I guess a lot of schools that I'm applying to have public history programs. Some of them have museum studies programs. I guess, like, what would be, if I had to choose between one or the other, in your opinion, like public history or museum studies, which would be more beneficial?
Do you have a thought to a career goal?
I guess like curations and like working as a curator would be my goal personally.
Oh, for me, I think the answer would be, I want to say both, but I understand if you have to choose. I guess I'm going to say museum studies, because I think it is important to understand the in-depth, the inner workings of a museum. You'll find out if it's really for you. The curatorial part can come with whatever your undergraduate degree might be, and then depending on the kind of museum you're going to go into. But to have that that really solid base knowledge from museum studies, and part of a quality museum studies program should include internships. And if you are not doing internships as a part of your program, do them on your own, and or volunteer experience when the time is right, non-pandemic, or if you can do it virtually, because that is immeasurable. As Lisa said, network, you will make contacts, you will make connections. And it's really, for me, in my judgment, I guess I would lean toward museum studies.
Jordan, I'll jump in here. I mentioned that Eastern had shuttered its doors, sadly. They had been around since 1974. And when I was there back in the Stone Age in the late 90s, 1997, there were already a lot of graduates working in the field. So what I might consider, and if I were in your shoes, is how long has the program been around? Because I know that museum studies graduate programs are popping up all over the place. It was not quite as expansive back when I was looking for something, but why is that important? Well, if you're graduating people every single year from this program, you got alumni that are out in the field. And alumni are going to generally take care of their own. You know, I hate to tell you that, but that is, I think, the reality of it. And so like Gina and Lisa said, your ability to network and maybe get that first internship, if someone sees that you're from the program they went to, you're already going to have that first foot in the door to possibly get that internship or that position. So for me, it's not so much important as to what the study is. I would look at how long have they been around, how many people are working in the business, but then also consider the tuition. And I say that because I used to work in Washington, D.C., and we had a lot of graduate school students from George Washington University, which I've heard is the most expensive school in the United States. And I often wondered, like, sadly, the museum world isn't a big money field. I know I'm dressed, you know, you guys must have thought, my gosh, this guy's a millionaire, but you have to look at it in terms of like, okay, if I have to pay tuition, you know, how do I maintain that? And so that's also another consideration. You know, we had those students, that was a 2-year program at GW, and a lot of them came to Smithsonian, and good, I'm sure they were all very successful, but I know the ticket, the price that they were paying to go to that school, and it was substantially more than maybe what I did at Eastern or maybe Gina's experience at UW Milwaukee. But I don't want to speak for Gina's finances.
Yeah, I would also echo what Doug said. When I was grad school shopping, I ended up getting to my #1 choice, but they didn't offer me any financial aid, no assistantship, nothing, no scholarships. And I got into one that was a little further down on my list, but I talked to them more and they offered me a full ride plus a paid assistantship, and just the experiences you get working with the professors and other students, I think greatly outweighed probably what I thought I might have gotten at my #1 choice. So, and I didn't have to pay off all those student loans at the end of the day, which has helped significantly. So yeah, something to think about.
I will also add, I've been involved in a fair amount of hiring at the museums, not only within my area, but I've been able to participate in interviews for other departments. And it is not, and I think this is really true for the museum profession nowadays. Maybe this was different 20, 25 and longer ago. It's not the school or the program per se. It's, did you complete it? What were your hands-on internship experiences like? Do you have good recommendations? Were you consistent after you left the program? Did you continue to volunteer? It's really indication of your interest and your passion. As Doug said, the museum field is not necessarily where you're going to make a fortune. You usually get into nonprofit work in the nonprofit world, museums, because of your passion, your interest, your dedication and commitment to certain things about it. And for me, it's not the name recognition of a school, it's what you actually experienced again, and you can list out in a very consistent way that showed that you followed through during the degree, after the degree, and you kept up communication with those that you were attending school with and your professors and those institutions that you may have interned for. If you graduate and you let all those things slip through your fingers, there's somebody else that's going to have the advantage over you.
Great, thank you, all three of you. Thank you so much. That was super helpful.
Any other questions? Marie, I know you had a couple more, so feel free to ask if you want to.
I might save my questions for.
Oh, we can't hear you, Marie.
There you
Sorry.
go.
Oh, the questions I have are more directed at collections and the ongoings of in those collections, so I might save them for another time.
Sure.
We can we'll backtrack. We'll get to you, Marie. We'll set something up.
Okay.
Yes. Kennedy, you had a question?
Hi, yeah. I was just interested in the internships that you guys have. Specifically, I'm asking about summer internships due to the fact that I am a student athlete, so it's hard to make time during school year. But yeah, just anything about the internships that you guys have.
Okay, I'll go ahead. So we do in a normal year offer internships. You would go through our contact us through our volunteer coordinator. There is information about what we need for the application process. And then she would work with you as the inquiry and then the various departments to see what might be available at any given time, spring, summer, or fall. The one thing to mention is that unfortunately, our internships are unpaid. There are other museums that might have paid internship opportunities in the summer. So that is, something to remember about us in particular. But museums really do depend upon their volunteers and their interns to get a fair amount of work done annually. But yes, for instance, here in a normal year, we can accommodate a summer internship.
So I know there may be a couple of questions and I want to alert everyone to the time and be mindful. We're just shy of 15 minutes to 3. So before I say my next comment, in the event that our conversation continues longer than the hour, which is definitely okay. Questions are great. Again, that registration form is in the chat, so please be sure to complete that. If Gina and Lisa are okay with me sharing their contact information in the chat, I'll do that so you can reach out to them along with Doug. And again, thank you to everyone who attended. So we'll go back to questions, but I just wanted to give everyone who has a 3 o'clock class or meeting the chance to say thank you, wave, and depart before we stick around if it's okay with the host to handle more questions. Okay, so I think Katie had a question, so feel free, Katie.
Okay, so I'm currently a senior at UW-Milwaukee, and since my graduation's on the horizon, I've been wondering if I should go to grad school, if I should just go to the workforce right away. And I know that I'm studying history, can be kind of like challenging to get a job right away. And especially with COVID, I know that the job market's not going to be wonderful. So do you recommend getting a master's if I'm going to go into the museum field, or do you think that a bachelor's degree is enough to start off with?
I can just speak for myself. Katie, I was, similar to your shoes. I think that most people will find that in this realm that if you're interested in museum work, most people will have a master's degree. I think that would probably be the route to pursue. As a history major, I'm sure this never happened to you, but everybody, what are you going to do with a history major, right? I mean, I'm sure that question never has been brought up for you, but my response to that is lots is what I'm going to do with my history major. I'm able to research, I'm able to write, I'm able to communicate in writing, I'm able to weigh evidence and make arguments. So don't let anyone out there tell you that a history degree isn't marketable. Any company worth its salt is going to need people who can read and write and communicate and weigh evidence and make intelligence decisions based on evidence. I think we're lacking a little bit of that. I'm going to hop on my soapbox a little bit in American society these days, and people that are able to do that are valuable. So, you know, for me, it comes down to what your goals are. If your goals are to work in the museum, I think you would find that unless you're getting in like an entry-level position, if you can, some people that we've hired here in the education department have started on like customer service roles, working front desks, working in the museum store, and then a part-time job would come open in another department, and that we've known them, we know they do good work, they're good, fun people, we want to be around them, and they kind of move up the ladder in the museum that way through their experiences in our own museum. So that is another route to go, and I have seen that be successful as well. Okay, I hope that helps.
I have friends who have taken, and other people I know that have taken their history major beyond museums. They've clearly they've gone into teaching, but I know some people who have gone into, you know, serious insurance work where they're doing a lot of investigation for insurance companies. Doug is right. A history degree prepares you for so much more than just what you kind of think of traditionally as old degrees that, you know, or a history degree, you know, a career that you think it's just one or two things. I do think that employers will look at it, hopefully, if they, you know, have an understanding of what you've accomplished in getting a history degree, and that it's not, don't think of it as that limiting, especially as you are weighing whether should I go to graduate school right now, or should I take a little time off, you know, and just work at something in the meantime. For me personally, between my undergraduate and my master's, there was a little bit of time. I wish I would have just gone right on into my master's, but that was my reality for then. I know it's vastly different now, but as long as the program that you're going to be going into works for you financially, and then with what, you know, hopefully the choice that you've made with its, you know, how the work that they will put you through, it's such a personal choice. So I don't think any of us can really say, oh, just go to graduate school. You really have to figure out what works for you. But Doug is correct, especially in the museum field. We do see the trends where it has been kind of master's preferred overall, especially in the curatorial roles and on the interpretation side, which is education, exhibits, and collections.
Yeah, I'll kind of, I agree. You can go both routes, but I have found that when I had my master's, the doors were a little bit more open. I felt I originally wasn't going to go straight into grad school from undergrad. I was going to take some time off and work, but it was I graduated undergrad in 2008 when everything was kind of similar to what it is now, and there weren't a lot of jobs and opportunities. So my mom really kind of forcefully pushed me to apply for grad schools. And I'm happy she did, because then I kind of knocked it out while the economy figured itself out. And as well as I was able to work retail which is a different experience while in grad school. So, but that was just my experience. Again, there's other ways of going around it. So
well, thank you again. These are great questions, and we're coming up on our, you know, we're coming up on the 3 o'clock hour, and I want to encourage everyone to, I included everyone, our hosts' information in the chat. So feel free to reach out to Lisa, Gina, or Doug to ask them questions, or you know, schedule another meeting to discuss a little bit more. I'm also including my host information too. So if you wanted to reach out to me, and if you have questions, you know, feel free to reach out. And again, the registration form, I'll put it in one more time. So everyone is sure to fill that up. Oh, Haley said Sarah had her hand up. I think we have a couple more minutes. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, thank you. Okay, I'm a freshman at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I know we already discussed customer service quite a bit, but I was wondering what other specific soft or like transferable skills you guys find valuable within the industry.
My social media and limited IT experience has definitely proven helpful this year because I set up Zoom conferencing for all the departments, and we're working with like different Google suites and everything. And I helped manage a lot of social media stuff for different college clubs, and that's kind of how I got that experience, which I never thought would pay off, but it did.
I'm going to add and echo Doug on shop, knowing how to use basic power tools with still having 10 fingers. In terms of collections work and exhibits, I would say if you know how to sew, it's extremely important, believe it or not. The other thing I would say is, for me, I had to go back to learn, basic accounting, basic principles of finance, so I could be a better department manager and a better steward of the money that I'm responsible for within the budget that I have to oversee. So you do not have to necessarily be an all-out MBA, but you do have to understand, some basic accounting principles. So those are the things that I'll add. There's a few more, but I don't know if Doug has any additional thoughts.
I got lots. I always have thoughts, Gina. Graphic design. So if you have graphic design, layout for flyers, for exhibit panels, for planning and laying things out. An important one for maybe the exhibits and design side of things. When we're looking for people, we have a museum aide position. That's really entry level into the education department. So a lot of that curiosity cart, hands-on, on the floor, on the front lines with people as they come into the museum. One of the things we always look for is you're going to be dealing with a lot of families when you come to our museum. So we ask people, do you have babysitting experience? Maybe you were a lifeguard and you taught swimming, or we had one of our folks say they were a student athlete. Maybe they taught camp, Girl Scout camp, some sort of interaction with kids. Maybe you have a younger brother or sister that you babysat for at home. And a lot of people I think will be hesitant in an interview to say that, like, well, what does that have to do with anything? For us, that has a lot to do with everything, because it shows me that you're comfortable around maybe younger visitors, younger kids, or maybe you took care of a grandparent. Maybe you worked in a nursing home. That shows me that you are comfortable working with different generations and different age groups of people. And then combining that with some customer service, that you worked at Culver's, or you worked at McDonald's, or retail at Kohl's or something like that. All of that will make you more marketable when it comes to the education side of things. So never discount any of that type of experience that you have.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here.
Well, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Lisa, Gina, and Doug for being here and answering the questions and saying all the things that my career services colleagues try to say to students. So it's nice to hear from employers say the same thing. Those skills that students may not really pay attention to are crucial when when you're looking at your career. So thank you for sharing that information. Again, your information is in the chat. So if anybody wants to reach out personally, feel free to do that, or you could connect. Other than that, I think we'll wrap it up. We have a trek again next week at 2 o'clock on, I believe, November, what is that, the 4th, is it? Yes. And that's with American Family Insurance, hosted by Madison. So feel free to attend that too. But thank you, everyone. I'll stick around if anybody has any questions or wants to chat. Otherwise, have a great day. Thank you.